Thanks for joining us this week on the show. I am so excited to share the conversation that I've had with Sage Dammers, the CEO and co-founder of Addictive Wellness. He has taken his passion for personal optimization from researching adaptogens and nourishing ingredients and discovering how he can find the highest quality and best sustainable sources, and he has created products that are truly inspiring. So listen in, enjoy the show, grab yourself a nourishing cup of tea, and let us know in the comments what's your biggest takeaway. What's one thing you feel like you're ready to take a look at, how you might shift with some of these amazing, powerful, nourishing ingredients. Thanks so much for joining us on the show. I know you're going to love this conversation. It's time to flip the script on stress and learn how to thrive today and throughout your days. Join me for inspiration and interviews with folks who are shining their light in the world in the areas of positive mindset, health, and well-being. I'm your host, Susie Vine. Let's get happified. Welcome back. I am so happy to have you with us today for a conversation that I know is going to get into some really juicy topics. A fellow science lover like myself who wants to make it applicable, something you can bring into your daily life. I am thrilled to introduce you today to Sage Dammers, the co-founder and CEO, product formulator, master chocolatier of Addictive Wellness. Sage has dedicated his life to the pursuit of holistic wellness and nutrition. Beginning his journey as a curious teenager, Sage has ventured beyond conventional education to immerse himself in the ancient herbal systems and nutritional practices of indigenous cultures, especially Taoist tonic herbalism. Sage has worked and trained under the world's leading herbalists and nutrition and longevity experts in Asia, Australia, Europe, Central America, and the US. At Addictive Wellness, Sage's passion manifests his relentless pursuits of the purest and most potent superfoods and adaptogenic herbs. If you're not sure what adaptogens are and why you're going to love them, we'll dig into that today. With a flair for innovation, he delights in using these superfoods and adaptogens to craft healthy renditions of beloved indulgences, ensuring that wellness and pleasure go hand in hand. Sage, thank you so much for jumping online with me today and joining me on the show. Thrilled to have you with me.
Thank you so much for having me on. I think we share many passions, and I'm sure we'll discover more as we go along. So I'm honored to be here and excited.
And before we dig into how you came to where you are now, I love the name of your business, your enterprise, Addictive Wellness. And I know that there's a story behind it that goes a little deeper than some people might first perceive. So tell us a little bit about how much there is to the name that you've taken on.
There's three layers to it. The first layer is the layer that people get offended by. And every now and then we'll say something, you guys, I don't know why you chose that name, addictive. Why would you want to have such a negative connotation with your brand? And I don't have an immediate solution for those people except sharing the actual deeper reasons behind it. The first layer is that I want people to think that it's okay to get hooked on stuff a little bit. It's okay to get really excited and throw yourself into something that you love if it's good for you. And so I want people to be able to have, okay, I'm addicted to something, fine. Maybe I have an addictive personality, but I'm addicted to my wellness. I'm addicted to promoting my well-being on a physical, mental, and spiritual level. Great. It's probably going to end up with some pretty good outcomes in the long run. But the other even deeper layer to it, and I didn't even realize this until after we picked the name for the company. So I can't say that we picked the name because of this. It's something we just happened to figure out afterwards, which is pretty cool. And that is the original Latin origin of addiction. And this is addictionem. And originally, this meant to be devoted, as in devoted to one's loved ones or one's God. And it wasn't until heroin came around and people developed this devotion to heroin like it was their God, that the meaning of the word shifted. And they would say, oh, he's addicted to that drug. Like it's his God. So the idea originally that we want to try to take it back to is being devoted. And so really we're saying to being devoted to your wellness and really having it be a focal point of your life, not something that just kind of runs in the background, but something where you're actively, continuously working on building your health to higher levels to create a foundation on which you can build an extraordinary life.
That's amazing. And it's so clear that you and your partner are deeply devoted to your mission with this business. You were so kind as to send me a little sample so I would know exactly what we're talking about in the conversation today. And it's just so clearly apparent in experiencing your products, in visiting your YouTube channel, and we'll share all the links so folks can follow you and stay engaged in the show notes, that you are devoted to clean and sustainable ingredients, the top quality, to really knowing the sources and the origins, and to making this available to folks who, as busy as we are in the world these days, it's hard to do the research. And so I appreciate that you are doing all of that background and deep study for us.
Yeah, to me, the purity of the ingredients is what carries through in the long-term experience. The purity and the potency, because you can have purity and no potency, right? You can have the purest water, and hydration is certainly good. And so it's not the perfect metaphor, but it's the purest water will not satisfy all of your nutritional requirements, let's say. So it's a purity and potency combo that we really go for. And because there are sometimes sources that are the absolute purest, but the quality potency wise is just not there. So you have to find the sweet spot. And I want people to have an amazing long-term experience. I could really hype up a couple of things and get people excited and make them buy a thing one time. But if they don't have a spectacular experience with it, they're not coming back. They're not going to be a repeat customer. So even just from a financial perspective, I want it to be an epic experience, and just from, of course, integrity as well.
And so I'd love for you to share a little bit about how you came to this place. What brought you to having this passion and clarity, and obviously a deep sense of purpose? You started this business, is it almost 10 years ago now?
Yeah, it's actually next week will be 10 years. Yep. As I was growing up as a vegetarian, which was kind of unusual in the 90s. And I didn't know any different. My parents were trying to raise us on the healthiest diet they could with the information that they had available to them in basically the pre-internet era. And we didn't have internet at home until I was like 8 years old. And, it's not like today where you can go and find an infinite amount of information, although that can sometimes lead to a lot of confusion as well. But the information was lower in the quantity, and they were doing the best they knew how to. Most of what we ate was organic, which was pretty amazing, but there wasn't necessarily a whole lot of variety in our diet. It was kind of like 5 nights a week of basmati rice and tofu, and maybe one night a week of pizza and one night a week of pasta. And that kind of went on repeat for a long time. And so the nutritional density maybe wasn't all that it could have been. They were doing the best that they knew how to, though. But I was reaching a certain level of performance, whether it was in school or in sports. But there was always this upper echelon, another, I don't know, maybe 5, 10% of people above me that I couldn't quite figure out how to reach to that level. And I knew my diet was different. That was the one big thing I could identify. I'm not eating what they're eating, but I'm also not eating what the people below me are eating. But it just got me thinking, maybe my diet has something to do with this. Maybe something can be shifted through diet. And as a teenager, my parents had a wellness center that they had in the local community where they were ahead of their time. They had infrared saunas, they had infrared heated jade massage beds. And this is going back in the early 2000s before this stuff was popular. And they had massage therapists, they had naturopaths working there, consulting with people. And they started selling like some supplement and superfood type products. And I had the great fortune to grow up, work in the front desk. And I would notice that as people would come in, they would come in with the intention to take a holistic approach to improving their health. And that was great, right? They were coming in with bad backs, with liver issues, with an enlarged prostate, with stress, with sleep problems, all this stuff. And I was seeing them improve, which was exciting. But as I was hearing everybody talk, everybody's talking about, oh, yeah, you got to be preventative about your health. You have to take a proactive approach and promote your health before you get sick. But I was thinking, wait a second, it's great that you guys are all saying this, but you're not doing it. Because I'm noticing you're coming in here sick. You're using holistic methods to heal yourself. Great, very great. But you waited until you got sick and then you came. So what would happen? Because I was seeing all these tools be so powerful. I thought, what would happen if I got active with these tools promoting my health from the ripe old age of 14? What does that mean for my life? What does it mean for my longevity? What does it mean for my, not just my performance now, but like my passion has always been surfing since like 10 years old. And I thought, okay, most surfers peak in their mid 20s, maybe early 30s, and then it goes downhill from there. And maybe around 50 or 60, they wrap it up and call it a day. And you see them just hanging out on the beach. I thought, well, what if I could do this? What if I keep surfing until I don't know, 80, 90. There's some people who have been known to surf up into their 90s. What does that mean, not only for the total enjoyment of my life, but how long I can continue progressing and improving for? And so I thought, okay, let's keep an open mind. Let's see what of this I can apply to my life. And little by little, I started doing these things and I started feeling better. And the big thing happened when somebody from the local community came in, this guy who was making this protein powder mix. And it was hemp protein and spirulina, chlorella, some other Western herbs like milk thistle. And I didn't have to this point really an example of what I wanted to be like. I had this idea in my head of what I could achieve on this path, but it was just all hypothetical. I had no living proof example in front of me. And this was the first time that I had that because everybody else was like in their maybe 50s, 60s trying to fix problems. This guy who came in with this mix, he was in incredible shape, really healthy guy, super smart in his 40s, but looked like he could be in his mid 20s. And okay, like he's an entrepreneur doing really cool business stuff. I want to be like that. Well, he's having this drink 2 out of his 3 meals a day. What if I start doing that? And so I started blending this up. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just blending it with Tropicana orange juice and some frozen fruit, and it tasted like absolute dirt. And I didn't care though. I was motivated. I wanted the results. I didn't care what it tasted like. So what I would do is I would take a straw and put it all the way to the back of my throat and just suck this thing down every day because I'm getting these results. It's happening. And so I kind of bypassed my taste buds there for a while. It was a totally transformational experience. And it made me realize if I've been missing out on all these ingredients all this time, what else have I been missing out on? And it shot me off down this rabbit hole of learning more about different herbs and adaptogens and different super nutritionally dense foods. I would like to call them superfoods. That term has been a little bit diluted by everything being called a superfood these days, but to me, it was a new term at the time. So I still resonate with the original intended meaning of it being something that is in the maybe top 1% of nutritional density of foods. And the more I would learn, the more I would incorporate into my life. The more I would incorporate, the better I would feel. The better I'd feel, the more I would want to go learn more. And this kind of went on for a few years. I didn't share it with anybody because I was in like high school, college. Nobody wants to hear about my longevity pursuits. It's not of interest to anybody. Nobody wants to hear about the new superfood concoction that I'm creating. But then in college, there was a time when I went on a surf trip with some friends to Costa Rica, and we'd all go out surf for 5, 6 hours. Except they would want to come in after 2 hours. They said, I'm tired. I want to go eat. I want to sleep. And I said, let's stay out here. There's nobody else out in the water. The waves are amazing. The sun's out. It's beautiful. And they noticed the one thing I was doing different. Now the tables had turned. They noticed I'm doing this something different food wise. And I'm drinking these weird little drinks. I bring my little NutriBullet blender in my suitcase and I'm in the corner of the hotel room making these drinks before we go surf. And they eventually say, hey, can you maybe make me one of those? And this is the moment I'd been waiting for because I never wanted to push anything on anybody. This is the peak of the opioid crisis. They were eating more Percocets and Oxycontins than they were actual nutritionally dense foods. And so I was really careful. They're my friends. I don't want to risk my relationship with them. I don't want to be the annoying guy pushing health on people who have zero interest in it. But I said, okay, let's do it. And this is like quietly the moment I had been waiting for. I had to contain my enthusiasm. And so I made them this drink and they tried to drink it and the flavor was so bad. And they were also so toxic because of this whole college experience that sometimes when you have a lot of toxins in your body and you take something that's very mobilizing of these toxins, it's very powerfully detoxifying, they're going to mobilize right back out the same way they came in. So 3 of the 4 of them were vomiting within the next couple of minutes. And the other ones were like choking it down. And 2 of them actually ended up sticking with the program and have had radically better health outcomes to this day than those who couldn't. And look, I don't blame them because it tasted gnarly. But I had a realization at that time that if I'm going to have a long-term beneficial impact and really affect more than just myself here, I have to figure out, and I didn't know how I was going to do this yet, but this is my goal. I said, I'm going to have to figure out how to make healthy foods, the healthiest foods in the world, so delicious and so amazing in whatever format that people want to consume it just because it's an awesome food experience. And it just so happens to be massively healthy as an afterthought. And that later led me into the benefits and potential of chocolate as if you're sourcing it right with wild cacao as opposed to farmed cacao and have something that's sugar free and mycotoxin free and you can even incorporate some of the most powerful herbs in the world into there and still have it taste amazing. This can be like the great gateway health food in the sense that anybody can enjoy a bar of chocolate. We sell a lot of powdered ingredients, and it takes some education to teach people, how do you use this? How do you use that? What do I do with it? I don't have to tell anybody what to do with a bar of chocolate. Everybody knows.
I love that. And I love that you call it the gateway experience, right? Because it really is. People have preconceptions or early experiences, and certainly things have come a long way in terms of taste and flavor and that experience of consuming this stuff that's so good for us. So I love that image of you working that straw to the back of your mouth and trying to
Oh,
just
yeah.
do what you know is good for you. And I think that is something too in your experience of being patient and looking for that opportunity. So many of us, when we're really excited about something and we're all lit up and we want everybody to know about it, and instead of getting people on board, we tend to push people away because they're not ready. It's not something that's aligned for them or at the right time. And so I love that one out, and that even though initially it wasn't 100% approval rating, it had an impact. And it is also important to recognize. So thank you for touching on that experience, that when we've been putting bad ingredients into our body, when our body is full of toxins, and it can come from any number of sources. It's not necessarily we're eating food that's full of toxins, but we live in homes that are full of toxins. So our body is just full of them. And we try to radically change course, then our body has to go through this kind of healing crisis. And sometimes it's worse before it gets better. And so that's why it's so helpful to work with somebody who's had the experience like you have, or a practitioner who can say, prepare yourself for this, take care of yourself this way, expect that kind of purge process to take about this long before you're really noticing the benefits of what you're starting to incorporate.
Yeah, and I think it helps to have somebody to guide you in the sense, like you said, to find the right dose to start out with. You don't need to go overboard in the beginning and trigger this detoxification response like I did with my friends. It's like when you're driving an older car without traction control and you slam the pedal to the metal, foot down on the gas. You're just going to spin your wheels. You're not going to go anywhere, and you could even slide out of control and it could go bad. Whereas if you go little by little, you'll get traction and you'll actually get moving and go somewhere and not just be doing a burnout.
Yes, I love that. That is the perfect analogy. So I hope that lands with people in terms of giving yourself space and grace. You don't have to make a radical shift in order to have impact. That slow transition can be a lot easier for you and last a lot longer than throwing yourself off by spinning your wheels, spinning
Exactly.
out as you start changing direction. And so you were talking about the adaptogens that are in many of your products, maybe all of your products. And as I was talking with some folks about having you on the show, I was reminded. So you and I live in Southern California. We're not neighbors, but at some point we'll look for an opportunity to get together,
Yeah.
because I think you're just such a light in what you're creating.
Oh,
Not as many people are fully aware of what adaptogens are, how they're beneficial to us. Just as you kind of clarified superfoods, it's a term that's been overused. But if you really scale it back and hold it to the high standard, something that is in that highest percentage, that absolute penultimate in terms of nutritional quality and potency. So how would you help people understand what adaptogens are and how they help us in this world swimming with superfoods that's gotten a little murky?
yeah. There's kind of two stages in which the concept of adaptogens came to be. The first part was in old times, like 2000 plus years ago. We're looking in the Taoist herbal system, and they have this classification of herbs. You have herbs that are poisons. This is the lowest class. You reserve them for your enemies. Then you have what are still called the inferior herbs. These are the medicinal herbs, and these are ones that you take for a short period of time because they are single directional. They're going to push one thing in your body this way or that way, and that's it. It's going to go in a predetermined direction. And you take these to treat a particular disease or illness. You take them for a short time to fix it, and then you stop taking them because long term they could develop some negative side effects and push you too far off in the other direction. Let's say your immune system, right? It's about balance. If you have an underactive immune system, you're getting sick. If you have an overactive immune system, now you have autoimmunity and your body's attacking its own tissues. It's about balance. So you wouldn't want to take something long term that was immune stimulating. So there's that. And then they have their elite class, which are called the tonic herbs. And these are herbs that are intended to be taken in small amounts daily over the course of your life to build a foundation of radiant health. And with these, There's multiple requirements for them. They must, of course, be non-toxic, but they have to also be what's called dual directional, meaning that depending on the biological situation in your body, they'll move things in one direction or another. They may bring up your immunity if needed. They may calm down your immunity if needed. If you need to have a stronger inflammatory response to, let's say you've injured yourself and you need that short-term inflammation, they're going to help drive that. If you need to bring down chronic runaway inflammation, it's going to help with that. If you need to help be more anabolic and build some muscle, could help there. If you need to burn more fat, could help there. So it is about strengthening your body's own self-regulatory mechanisms. And then it wasn't until thousands of years later, in the mid 1900s, when this Russian gentleman, Dr. Nikolai Lazarev, actually coined the term adaptogens. Now, this was a doctor in Russia who had been tasked with developing all of, I guess you could say, performance enhancing drugs for Russian soldiers during the World Wars. But after, when he no longer basically had the gun to his head from the Russian government, he said, I want to pursue my actual interests. And that is, what plant and natural materials can I find that will have similar performance enhancing effects, but can be taken safely long term and promote people's health. And for him, the big focus was Siberian ginseng as one of the greatest adaptogens coming out of that territory. And so this was intended to be something that is going to improve your body's stress resilience and improve your body's own self-regulatory capabilities, because your body's super intelligent at keeping everything in a great balance. It's like when you look at any blood test and you see the number of things that have to be kept within such a precise, relevant range to keep you just basically functioning and not totally falling apart. It's amazing to think about what goes on in your body every single day. But sometimes your body just needs a little help with those regulatory systems to be able to achieve this.
And so I feel like I'm asking a parent to choose their favorite child. But do you have some favorite adaptogens? I know you incorporate a lot of them into your products, but are there some? Siberian ginseng is one that maybe one of the first ones that I've heard about. And then since then, so many more have been added to that list. Now you see them in so many products. But what are some of your top picks or recommendations?
It's, of course, always going to depend on the person. It's going to depend on the life and health situation and what they're looking to achieve. But for me, number one is going to be reishi mushroom. This is a mushroom that grows on fallen trees, or when it's cultivated, it's grown either on wood or on grain. And there's a big difference because one of those is its natural food that it evolved to grow on, and the other is not its natural food. So if I took you off your ancestral diet and put you on a diet of only grain, you probably wouldn't grow to be the fullest manifestation of yourself. So with reishi, as with many other mushrooms that you see these days, you might walk into a Whole Foods and see this product on the shelf that says USA organically grown reishi mushroom or lion's mane mushroom or one of several others. And you think, okay, that sounds great. That's checking a lot of boxes that I hear are supposed to be good. Problem is, if it's grown on grain, it's not going to produce a whole class of the compounds that it should, called terpenes, that deliver most of its benefits. So reishi works on a number of levels. It is great for decreasing stress and anxiety, which is possibly what it's most famous for, but also very good for enhancing your body's own immune intelligence. So that's a top one for me. Ashwagandha is another one in terms of decreasing stress, but also improving energy and endurance, improving hormone health, supporting the thyroid. And lion's mane mushroom for optimizing cognitive health. Then you can look to something like astragalus, which is a root that is great for immunity, but also energy and endurance. Into that similar category would be a fungus called cordyceps that is improving your oxygen utilization. So of the air you breathe, more oxygen makes it to your lungs, then to your blood, to your muscles, to your brain. So everything's operating a little bit better. And people may get overwhelmed as I'm flying through these because I'm just so passionate about them and think, oh, but that's too many. I can't, what do I have to try all of these at once? What am I supposed to do? If you hear me mention one ingredient, one herb, one adaptogen during this conversation today that particularly sparks your interest because I heard it said something about it that kind of just lit up a light bulb for you, start with that one. Just start with one. And then you can experiment with others. And then you can move on. Don't try to date 10 different people at once. Don't necessarily need to start with 10 different herbs at once. Get to know them one-on-one. And then I got to switch metaphors a little bit here. But if you start with 10 of these at once, it's like going on a first date to a rave and trying to get to know all the people there. It's going to be a little bit difficult. It's not the ideal environment. But if you go on a date with one person in a romantic setting, you take this herb, you mix it with a little bit of hot water, You sip it slowly. You sit quietly. Focus on your breathing. Pay attention to how things are feeling in your body. You're going to get to know each other a lot better, and you can go to the wild parties with other people later, but get to know each other one on one.
I love that. I love that. And you went right into where I wanted to go next, which is how do you encourage people to cut through the noise, right? Because we do tend to, now things have so many ingredients, or we get this superfood drink mix or something like that. And we're not sure what is having what impact, how we're noticing a change. So making that opportunity to start off slowly, to choose one ingredient that resonates with you and say, okay, I'd like to explore that. How does that impact my energy? Or if I've been having some immunity issues, let's spend some time with this one and how can I incorporate it? What kinds of things, as you mentioned, getting quiet, going internally, maybe journaling about your experience, but what kinds of shifts do you help people learn to look for as they're making these changes? Because these can be some subtle changes when we're used to like immediate impact and radical results. And some of these things are so supercharged, we start to miss that subtlety that
Mm-hmm.
nature has that's available for us.
I would say the first time I liked people to just to sit quietly and have that romantic first experience with the herb because there's nothing quite like that first time. And I kind of liken it to, again, accelerating in a car, but a little bit different than our previous car metaphor in the sense that you don't feel speed when you're driving. You could be going 80 miles an hour on the freeway and it's not a big deal. If you accelerate very fast from 0 to 60, though, that throws you back in your seat. You're like, whoa, your eyes go big, your adrenaline gets going. And so you feel the acceleration, you feel the change. So I like people to really pay attention to that change in the beginning stage because that is, to me, what's so exciting. And I remember the first time I tried this herb and that herb, the change I experienced, and it's just a great memory on top of everything else. So with these, I would say it's a great idea to figure out what are you hoping to see from this herb. Let's say with reishi mushroom, you want to decrease your stress levels. Excellent. It doesn't need to be like a massive journal entry every single day, but maybe you could open up the notes app on your phone or just send yourself a text at the end of every day, rate your stress 0 to 10 and track that over a period of 4 to 8 weeks. You can have an amazing experience with the herb the first time, and a lot of people do. Some people aren't as reactive. Overall, when you look at the research that's done on these herbs, it's typically done over a period of somewhere between 4 to 12 weeks. So I like to encourage people to at least stick with it for 4 consistent weeks before you come to any conclusions over whether or not it has worked the magic for you.
I love that. I love that. So patience and awareness, which I think is so helpful in terms of just recognizing what your body is asking for, how you can support it. So it's a beautiful practice to cultivate altogether, but certainly to really be present to the shifts that these adaptogens and other nourishing ingredients can be providing for you.
Absolutely. Totally agreed.
Talking a little bit about stress, and we'll keep coming back to that because that's a pet topic of mine, but also looking at support for cognitive performance for those of us who are working pretty hard, but also long-term brain health. Because like you, I'm passionate about helping people find that power in being proactive instead of waiting until it's broken and then looking for ways to fix it. So, what are some ways that incorporating these ingredients is helping to maintain that long-term brain health and resilience that I think everybody can see in their grandparents, perhaps their parents, is something that we really want to be proactive about. We want to enjoy all of our days, not just where we are right now.
Absolutely. And the health of your brain is really going to be something that you can track pretty exactly with how much you can enjoy life, right? If your mental health is going downhill, you think you're going to be having more fun than ever? Probably not. Probably not. With brain health, you can look at some of the great adaptogens in this category. I would say you can look at lion's mane mushroom. Ashwagandha is another great one. Cordyceps that we mentioned. The Siberian ginseng we also mentioned, also fabulous. You can look at rhodiola as another great one for enhancing cognitive performance. My top two, if I was to pick, for simultaneously enhancing both short-term cognitive performance and long-term cognitive health would be lion's mane mushroom and ashwagandha. A big part of the reason here is that these are both shown to restore what's called the myelin sheath. And this is as your nerves go through your brain, you have this sheath, this fatty covering that protects it, kind of like the bumpers on the bowling lane. that keep things from getting too crazy. And when you have healthy myelin sheath, everything is working great. Everything's very protected. Everything runs smoothly. And the healthier your myelin sheath, the faster nerve signals can travel along those nerves. It's like if you have really great bumpers on your bowling lane, you can just go wild, sling that thing down there, and you're going to hit some bowling pins at least, even if you had zero aim. And so I love these from that perspective. And they've also been shown to, especially in the case of ashwagandha, to be able to regrow the neurites where there has been damage from heavy metal exposure. Heavy metals, this is something that everybody is exposed to these days. You can eat the cleanest diet, but the fact is you're living in a modern world and you're breathing the air. There are heavy metals in the air in the modern world. It's sad, but it's reality. You're probably not going to immediately be able to change that reality. So in 2 steps, well, actually 3 steps, minimize your heavy metal exposure is a great idea where you can, where it's reasonable. Don't eat tuna. Maybe have things like sardines and salmon as your source of fish, so you're not building up crazy mercury levels. And then take things that are going to help your body detoxify these. So you can incorporate something like chlorella on a long-term regular basis, just doing a gentle, consistent heavy metal detoxification. And then maybe work with a practitioner who can have you do some form of chelation through something like DMPS, DMSA, and then measure the heavy metals that are being excreted, get an idea of where you're at, and then maybe do a more focused heavy metal detoxification over a period of a few months to a few years to really shift things. And then have things that are going to help repair damage from heavy metals because there's not going to be zero. You're going to be exposed to some stuff. So it's a great idea to have things like lion's mane and ashwagandha that are going in there on a consistent basis and say, okay, we need to do a little patch up here, a little work over there. Let's reconnect this thing that broke. And that is just little by little, long term, ensuring great cognitive health over the long run. And then you can also look at something like magnesium L-threonate, going a little bit out of the herbal category here, but this is a form of magnesium that is the best at crossing the blood-brain barrier. Most forms can't do that at all. This one does it the best. And so you're raising your brain levels of magnesium. And this is actually shown that when people take it, especially later in life, to give them cognitive performance of somebody actually much younger. So pretty cool in that regard too.
Amazing. And thank you for that, because there's a lot of buzz about magnesium. We know that most of us are probably deficient in magnesium. I don't know if there's a metal that's displacing it. I know when we get out of balance with toxic metals, they can displace some of the essential minerals that we need to be holding in our bodies. And so that's a great tip, because the brain is a hungry animal that takes so much energy. It runs so many processes. We really need to nourish it. So that's a great tip, the magnesium L-threonate.
L-threonate, yes.
All
And
right.
it's almost 80% of people in the US that are chronically deficient in magnesium. And think about what that's doing to your brains, to your muscles, to your overall stress levels when you realize how calming magnesium can be. And don't forget, just to throw this in there, the number one highest natural food source of magnesium is chocolate. So you can have some fun and get your magnesium at the same time.
And I'll take this opportunity now and I'll share the products that I got to enjoy. We'll see if my camera can focus, but we'll have a link to Sage's website so you can learn more. But not only are the chocolates now, they're targeted to a goal. So I just happen to hold up love, tranquility. I've got focus, energy. I've got so many great things to play with here, Sage. You're like Santa Claus. And then on the back, it's probably hard to narrow it down to not throw everything in the kitchen sink in all of these. You're featuring 3 ingredients. You can see a couple more in the ingredients list. And not everybody loves dark chocolate, but the real natural intense flavor of the chocolate is just shines. They're really fantastic.
Thank
And
you.
so tell us a little bit about the formulations that you have available, because it goes a little deeper than just love, just tranquility. So let people know what they're looking for if they visit your website and they take a look at what you have available there.
So most people obviously do different flavors with chocolate, right? You might have a mint chocolate, a salted caramel chocolate, a sea salt chocolate, all these different directions, which is a lot of fun. But I am so passionate about these herbs, and I wanted the chocolate to be a vehicle of delivery and discovery for these herbs for people. I wanted to be able to give somebody a chocolate who had never had cordyceps, and now they've had cordyceps and they started to experience it in their body. So I decided instead of doing different flavors, we're going to do different functions. And each chocolate is going to have a different set of herbs in there as a formulation for a particular function. So as you mentioned, there's love, there's energy, there's beauty, tranquility. focus, recharge, immunity. And then we have pure. The pure one has no herbs in there for somebody who just wants to do just chocolate, which is awesome too. Also, it's great for women who are pregnant or breastfeeding because we don't yet have any long-term research on these herbs during that really sensitive time. In spite of historical use, we still don't have the modern research. So to err on the side of caution, we got the pure chocolate for the pregnant and breastfeeding ladies. And it all really, in the beginning, has to start with great cacao. So there's huge spectrums out there in terms of quality of cacao. And it doesn't even matter what country it's from necessarily, as much as what variety it is as well, how it's grown, where it's grown. And with this, the key thing to understand is this does not come from a farm. This does not come from a plantation. This is not monocropped. It's not grown in straight rows. This is wild harvested cacao, which is something totally different. When you think about something that grows wild versus something that is grown in a man-made environment, you can think of dogs, right? You can have a wiener dog or a chihuahua. If anybody has those, I'm sure you love them very much. They're very sweet, very adorable in so many ways. But you put that next to its brother, the wolf, the wild dog. This is a whole different creature and something with so much more biological potential in so many ways. That is what's going on with this cacao. It has to survive out there in the survival of the fittest, out in maybe one of the most intense environments there is in the jungle, with everything trying to compete for resources. And so this produces the kind of cacao that's totally different. It's going to be so much more robust in terms of its genetics. It has a flavor that normally cacao has to be roasted to achieve this depth of flavor. This is cacao that hasn't been roasted because it doesn't need it. And we can maintain the integrity of the heat sensitive compounds in there that way. And then it's fermented, as most cacao is, of course. And it's mycotoxin free. And this is not necessarily because there's some special magical processing that we have. It's because of the genetic robustness of those beans that they don't fall prey to mycotoxins because it's a stronger variety. It's like when you have, to use the dog metaphor again, when you have dogs that are purebred and their breeding is so controlled by human intervention, they end up with some problems. Oh, this type of dog has hip problems over the long run, or this type of dog can't breathe really well. Or that's the thing with cacao as well. The more you hybridize it and breed it to be able to produce huge quantities over qualities on a, a farm and a plantation in a completely controlled environment, it's going to have some issues that develop over time as well. Whereas here we go back to the heirloom original cacao and we have something pretty magical.
Amazing. And you also shared with me some of the pure ingredients. I've got turkey tail mushroom, which I hear amazing things about, and the astragalus. And so these, it's just a little tiny bit. I think a half a teaspoon,
You can do
right? So it's
half a teaspoon's a
pure.
great dose. It's very potent. It's an extract, right? It's not, you haven't just taken the ground or up herb. You don't take the astragalus root and grind it up into powder and have that. It's been extracted. So it's 10 times concentrated in what you're getting there and super bioavailable. So you just do half a teaspoon in a cup of hot water. Those two actually taste so delicious on their own. And that's just not me, the disgusting smoothie drinker, saying that. This is something I can give to anybody. And they're like, wow, this is really nice. It's really nice. And those are great for immunity. Of course, turkey tail is legendary for its beneficial effects for breast health and with breast cancer. Astragalus is amazing for energy as well. So those I would say those are two that if you want to give something to people who have never had an adaptogen before and you don't know how they would react to some more novel flavors, these are so easy. Everybody loves them.
Great entry points. And I saw one of your videos where you're talking about the power of extraction and the ways that you do it. So are these examples of the dual extraction method that you talked about in one of your videos?
So those two in particular are just hot water extracted. It's a single extract. You do it differently for different herbs because with some herbs, the alcohol extractant fraction is very important and there's important compounds you're looking for there. With some, you really get what you're looking for in just a water extract. The vast majority of the active compounds in these two are water soluble. So what happens is that they're basically made into a tea, you could say, and just simmered for an extended period of many hours. Then the original herb material is removed, and you have basically a very strong tea, and then that's simmered down till it gets super concentrated, like a syrup thickness. And then it's spray dried, and so it's turned into a powder. But you may take some other herbs, things like reishi mushroom, for example, or lion's mane mushroom, in that first, before it's hot water extracted, it's alcohol extracted for an extended period of time to slowly extract alcohol soluble compounds. Then the herbal material, what's called the mark in extraction speak, is removed, and you have an alcohol extract. Okay, you set that aside. Then you do the hot water extract with that mark. Now you're getting out the water soluble compounds. Then you combine those two back together and spray dry them, and now you have a dual extracted powder. And then in the case of our reishi, we're obsessive. So we actually go even one step further and we take the reishi spores, which is like the seed of the reishi that it shoots off. And this contains a lot of the active compounds in reishi at even higher concentrations than the mushroom itself. But the problem is it has two shells on it that are very hard. You wouldn't really be able to digest. So it goes through high pressure processing to crack those shells. And then we mix this in 50-50 with a dual extract. So we're trying to just give you like the ultimate reishi experience. So you get to know the whole thing all at once.
That's amazing. Thank you for doing the hard work so it can be simple at home.
Oh, my pleasure.
It
As you
definitely
can
set me
tell, I
free.
get pretty excited. Like there's a way to make something more powerful, more amazing, more potent. I'll stop at nothing. It's my passion.
And I mean, it's clear to see because the energy, the way it lights you up when you're talking about it, you're clearly on the right path, doing what you are meant to do, bringing this forward in the world. And I will say again, on your YouTube channel, there's so much information. And I love to find the research. I think it's brilliant when we're finally at a point where science is catching up with wisdom that we have had for thousands of years that we might have almost lost in the process. And now we're getting back to. So for the folks who need their validation, science is finally catching up with wisdom. And the way that you look at research and you distill it down so that people can really understand it and get this excited about being proactive, because this is what it takes. We'll make changes for other people. We'll do anything to help the people that we love, but for some reason, it's hard to keep ourselves high on that list, and we fall back into patterns and habits. And oh, I'll get to that next time. Or New Year's resolutions are only 2 months away. I'll put it on the list. So
Right.
thanks for
Good to
bringing
remember
yourself.
to care for yourself as if you were one of those people who you were responsible for taking care of.
Yes, exactly. Let this spark move through you. So I'd love to hear a little bit. Now, we've talked a lot about nutrition and the products that you're creating. I'd love to know personally, what are some of your favorite health optimization lifestyle practices that you've cultivated and hold on to?
So there's, of course, the nutritional side of things, right? There's the adaptogens, there's the chocolate, there's the crazy meals that I love making. And that side of things is a lot of fun. Maybe I will quickly share my breakfast recipe that I've eaten pretty much every day for the past 7 or 8 years or so that I find works perfectly for me. And everybody will find, hopefully, that perfect recipe that works for them. And for me, I have a very busy day. I need to have something, if I'm eating something around 9 or 10, maybe 11, that's going to sustain me all the way to dinner. The way my life is these days, I can't imagine stopping for lunch. And so I have this amazing quinoa millet sprouted seed bread that I get from this company in Northern California called Grindstone Bakery. Many health food stores have it, but I also I order it directly from them and they ship me a couple loaves and I have a few in the freezer and one in the refrigerator. And so I'll have 4 slices of this toasted and I'll take an avocado from this tree right back here. And in there, I'll put a tablespoon of ghee, a tablespoon of almond butter, a tablespoon of MCT oil, specifically C8 MCT oil, which is very easily converted by the body into ketones as an alternative fuel source to glucose. Then I'll put 3 tablespoons of pea protein, which seems to work quite well for my body. Everybody will have different protein sources that are ideally suited to them. And a tablespoon of spirulina, a tablespoon of chlorella, and I'll mash all that up like a guacamole consistency. And I'll put that thick on top of this toast, and then I'll put some salt on top of there and a mix of different spices. And that to me is absolute heaven. It's the perfect food to keep me full, energized, and going. So that I think is a huge part of why I'm able to be so effective every day. Then I'm a big fan of hot and cold. My family is in the infrared sauna business as dealers of clear light saunas. So I'm very connected to that world since I was quite young. And then I love getting into the cold, whether it's getting into the ocean here or getting into whatever cold body of water, even if it's a little bit of a cold shower. It is quite a rush and just really makes you feel alive and reminds you that you're capable of a lot if you can overcome the cold. It's a formidable foe, but one that you can really grow from fighting with. And those are some of the big ones for me. Of course, getting out in nature, spending time outside, making sure to experience plenty of sunlight, especially as we go into the shorter days of the year where you got to really make a point of getting outside during times of the day when you can get the sun on your skin, get the sun in your eyes. and send those signals to your brain that you can keep producing that serotonin. It's okay. Keep me happy here. We need it. So those, I would say, are some of the favorites for me. And also understanding my genetics from having genetic testing and analysis done with an expert is that I can customize some of my supplementation and some of my health and nutrition and lifestyle approaches to my personal genetic needs, which allows me to take a shortcut that I might have never been able to achieve, or that would have taken me a lot longer to figure out. I can say, oh, this is how I'm built. If I have caffeine, I feel amazing for one day and sad for five. Okay, I'm going to stay away caffeine, but it might work for somebody else. I just have two genes that make it an absolute disaster for me. And so figuring out these kinds of things can really save you years of trial and error.
Yes, I think it's really important, and I appreciate you drawing attention to that, that we are all unique. You mentioned earlier you were raised on a vegetarian lifestyle. I'm guessing that you're probably still vegetarian,
I'm not anymore. No.
because perhaps you discovered that that's something that your body needs in order to thrive or feel more balanced.
I did find higher performance in many levels and better physical health through consumption of select animal foods. I'm not a big fan of beef or chicken, but basically I will have salmon, sardines, some organ meats, buffalo, elk, these kinds of things that to me seem a little bit more robust. Like I look with the wild cacao, I look for also something that has a little bit more of that wild genetic robustness when it comes to food as well.
Yes. So thank you for that. That's a perfect illustration. We are not even identical to our siblings, to our parents. And so really digging into what works for us, paying attention, tuning in and tracking the progress, genetic testing. If you find a practitioner to work with that can really help to decode that information, really helps to get you light years ahead of, you know, well, this is the way that I've always done it. So it must be fine. So far, I'm fine. It's be fine. You
If
can find ways to refine it.
I just wanted to say, even if somebody has a hard time finding a genetic practitioner specialist, there are more tools nowadays that can allow you to get quite a bit of that knowledge on your own. My favorite budget-friendly way to approach it is you can do 23andMe and just do their ancestry package. Don't bother with the health package. It's not very good, but just get the ancestry. And then you can even use a fake name if you don't want them to be able to link your information back to you. And then you download the raw data. And there's several great sites that you can upload it to. One is Found My Fitness from Dr. Rhonda Patrick. Another one is Promethease that gets a little very heavy on the science and is maybe not for the beginner. But you upload it to these and you can download a report of all kinds of insights. And there that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's other services more and more being offered in this area, but you can start within a very short period of time better understanding your genetics and what might work great for somebody else, but is going to be your absolute kryptonite, and vice versa. Maybe there's a secret supplement that for you will transform your life, and for somebody else, they wouldn't need it.
Awesome. Thank you for those resources. I'll be sure to share those in the show notes. I'm excited to take a look into that myself. And one thing I love to ask guests as I have them, and now we've been talking about ways to address and feel balanced in stress, but you live a very high speed lifestyle. You've got a lot going on. Are there, beyond what we've talked about, is there something that you go to when life is really hectic, when you know that you need to hit reset and come back into balance? Is there a practice or something that you embrace in those times that you would share with folks?
I make sure I'm checking all the boxes in terms of supplements and adaptogens. So I'm making sure, let's say it's getting really stressful, for example. I'm doing reishi, I'm doing ashwagandha, I'm taking CBD, I'm making sure I'm taking magnesium in the evening. Basically, I'm trying to build the ultimate night's sleep because that's how you're going to unwind. And during your sleep, you have not your lymphatic system, but your glymphatic system with the G that washes out your whole brain of all the metabolic byproducts from all the craziness of the day. And that, if it's going well, allows you to start the next day fresh. So I'm also taking a teaspoon of raw honey shortly before going to bed because that ensures stable blood sugar throughout the night. You can have two kiwis before bed, which sounds very random, but research has actually shown it speeds up how fast you fall asleep. You stay asleep for more of the night as well. And so that is like a weird little sleep hack, is having a couple of kiwis. And so basically, I'm trying to build this all around the ultimate night of sleep. And then on top of that, the next day, if I can start out with some breath work, I've been for many years, back since 2014, a big fan of the Wim Hof method, not just for the cold. Even if somebody doesn't want to mess around with the cold, they're not ready for that. Just the breathing in terms of the way that it regulates your nervous system is amazing. I think a lot of people think their emotions are not able to be controlled by them, or they're just kind of beyond, like things just happen. And then you have your mind where you have your conscious thoughts. And your breath is interestingly something that spans the bridge between the conscious and the unconscious, in the sense that you can focus on your breath and control it very easily. But most of the day, your breath is just going without you thinking about it. If you had to think about every single breath all day long, you would have died a long time ago. You'd have gotten distracted and forgot to breathe. Breath is something where if through the breath, through that pathway, you can start to tap in and control some of the things that you may have otherwise thought are beyond human control, that are just running subconscious. But you can cross that bridge through this gateway of the breath.
Ooh, that's amazing. I love encouraging people to take a closer look at sleep. Sleep is healing. It is profound how much it supports us and how much our body needs to be able to do while we're resting. So sleep is a wonderful thing to take a look at. And the power of breath. That's exciting, as that information is becoming more widely available. To go back to something that is as quote unquote simple as the breath, it is deeply powerful for helping us hit reset and completely shift our nervous system from sympathetic back into parasympathetic. So that's fantastic. Thank you for those. As I mentioned, I'll have links in the show notes, but you can learn more about Sage and their work at Addictive Wellness on their website, addictivewellness.com. And if you're taking a look at their products, they've been so kind as to share with us a discount link. So for listeners of the show, enter the coupon code 3x less stress, all one word, 3 S's in a row in the middle of that, 3x less stress as your coupon code to try some of these products for yourself. They're delicious. And Sage, before we go, is there anything else you would love to share with our listeners today?
I'd love to share chocolate with all of them. I wish we were all here in the same place at the same time and could just have a big chocolate party. That aside, I just want to thank them for listening and giving me the time. I appreciate that a lot. Obviously, this is something that I'm very passionate about, as you could probably tell. And thank you for the opportunity for me to be able to share this with everybody.
I'm absolutely thrilled. And I have gotten a bit out of the practice of sharing the full transcript on the website, but there is so much we need to be able to call back on in this conversation. So I'm going to try to have that up. So take a look there. There's going to be a lot more information for you at happifiedlife.com and information for this episode. And Sage, I want to thank you for carving out time in your busy day to join us. I hope everybody takes some inspiration to just find one thing that resonated from you today. Don't fall into overwhelm, and take a look at how you can incorporate that and notice the benefits and appreciate just how powerful you are at helping yourself level up. Thank you, Sage.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening. You'll find all the resources we discussed today online at happifiedlife.com, along with links to subscribe to Happified on your favorite player and a handy search tool so you can search all of our previous episodes. Help us grow by leaving a quick review and share this episode with a friend. Until next time, keep on shining.